Welcome to AgriMinds, the podcast where we explore the intersections of personal growth and professional success in the ag industry. I'm Kacee, your host. Thank you for joining me as we dive in to the different strategies and insights that will help you level up your life and career. From mental health to leadership development, we're going to cover it all. So sit back and get ready to grow with AgriMinds. Welcome to another episode of the AgriMinds podcast. Today I have Jamie Viramontes. She and I connected on social media a while back. She's from New Mexico. She's doing the farm thing. She's doing the corporate America thing, raising a family, a little bit of everything. And so I wanted to bring her on the podcast to share how she actually left entrepreneurship and went back to work. And so Jamie, welcome to the AgriMinds podcast.
Hi, Kacee. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Just so everybody knows, like the whole point of the AgriMinds podcast, we talk a lot about personal and professional development. And I think that not only my story, but the majority of the people on the previous episodes, we've talked about how we found what it is that we were meant to do. And that has looked like leaving our full-time job and going and being an entrepreneur. And so Jamie, I can't wait to hear your story because you kind of did the opposite. Why don't you share a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. I bring a different perspective on that. So I started off working for our family farm right out of college. I graduated from college in May of 2011, married my full-time third generation farming husband that same year in November. And I just jumped right into everything on the family farm. So we run a diversified row crop farm. So there's a lot of different varieties that are grown down here. We farm in the desert. So as Kacee said, I'm from New Mexico. So down in the far southwest, there's not a lot of water. So it's all irrigated land, but we have a very climate that's conducive to a lot of different types of crops. So we grow a lot of vegetable crops, a lot of produce and specialty crops. And when I started on the farm, it was becoming a requirement to really start focusing on food safety and food safety awareness. And so when I joined, I started in on creating a protocol to ensure that the food that we were selling to retailers was safe for consumers to eat, and that we were undergoing all the effective protocols for that we were keeping record of those protocols. We were training our employees on safe handling practices, all that sort of thing. So I started off with creating a food management program for our farm. Then went into payroll, keeping books, doing our budget. I mean, all the things that, you never really have a specific title when you're in a family farm working. It was kind of just everything starts getting thrown at you. A few years later, we purchased a big packing facility. And so we started packing our own watermelons and pumpkins and shipping to major retailers directly, which was another learning curve for me. So I learned how to manage a crew and operations and shipping and receiving and all the things there that are required for food safety as well. So I worked for the farm for about 10 years. In that time, we had 2 kids, and it got to a point where our kids are very young. They're now 5 and 8 years old. So I was trying to, balance. Balance is not ever the good word, but in this sense, at that time, I was feeling all the pressure of, okay, I'm a mom to 2 young kids. I am working crazy hours during the produce season, sometimes 11, 12 o'clock at night, loading trucks. This isn't good for my kids. This isn't healthy for our family. And we're still struggling financially. Farming is just this scary, never ending risk-taking business. I tease my husband, you're a professional gambler, because we never know whether the market's going to be good, whether the yields are going to be good, if weather is going to come and destroy our entire crop and we're not, going to recover because the crop insurance isn't that great for us, or whatever that might be. There's so many risks. There's so many uncontrollables. And it just really started taking a toll on my mental health. Like, are we going to do this? Our input costs are continuously increasing. Our health insurance for our family is astronomical. We can't keep affording this and taking those risks. And so my husband and I just decided, we talked for months and months, went back and forth. I decided to finally just put my resume out. I said, I have a degree. Why don't I use it? I can probably find something in agriculture, because I knew that was my passion. I didn't want to leave that. So I had a degree in ag business and economics, threw my resume out, and it was kind of ironic because I found a company on LinkedIn that we had met with previously in the past for our farm, actually, and it was a software company. And I was like, hey, I recognize that company. I'm going to apply for this position. And I ended up getting a full-time remote position with them. So I always like to say I kind of did it backwards. I talked to so many people who are encouraging and say, I quit my full-time job to be able to live out my dream. And while my dream is still to make sure that we continue on this legacy of family farming, I'm coming about it in a totally different manner, because I'm the one that says it's okay to not live that life full-time and you're still contributing to that family farm. So it's a little bit different from my perspective here. And I've really enjoyed it. I love working full time. Of course, everything has its challenges. It's a challenging world, but I've learned so much about really the diversity of farming and how different farming is in different regions. So I've worked with customers, all across the Southeast, into the Midwest, even in South Africa. We have a couple of customers that I've worked with and talked to, and into Australia. So I'm learning about agriculture from a totally different perspective. So I think my biggest words of encouragement for someone who is trying to decide what to do, you can put your passions into any type of career. I knew I loved agriculture. I knew I didn't want to leave that. And yet I found a career that is able to help our family, to help our farm, help my kids, and really have a better flexible schedule to be with them and be present for them in this time in their lives. And I'm still using my passion of helping farmers and ranchers.
That is so deep. I love everything about that. In week 5 of the AgriMinds program, we talk about when to push through, when to pivot, and when to pause. And then, the following week, it's aligning with the season of life that you're in. And I think that's so important, because a lot of the times, if we look at other people on social media or meet other people at events, conferences, whatever, at least for me, I kept hearing this success story of people leaving corporate America, leaving their full-time job and chasing their dream and becoming an entrepreneur. And I always felt like I was behind, because if I look at our 4th generation family farm that I grew up on, they've all been entrepreneurs. They've all found a way to make and earn money right there at the homestead. And I always thought, man, I must have failed somewhere along the line that I couldn't figure it out. There wasn't a place for me on our family farm. And so I had to leave and go get a town job, is what we called it. And could I have made it work? Yes. But my parents also said, Kacee, you've got champagne taste on well water budget. Like there's not even a beer budget right now. Like it is, you're getting tap water. And so I had to go get a real job. I wanted to experience life. And then the people that I, became influenced by, they were the people who were getting the new vehicles and the white picket fence and the house at the end of the suburb. And I thought, man, I've got to leave our farm gate and go make something of myself. And so that was my personal story. And I think that I'm on the right trajectory. I mean, I've left my corporate job. I've experienced entrepreneurship and I've got the bug, and I don't ever foresee myself going back. But I say that and I knock on wood, because there may be a time when it makes sense for us, given the economy, given, whatever. I may have to just suck it up and go back to work. And that was a realization that my husband and we came to terms with is, we'll give entrepreneurship a shot. He's working full time. We have benefits through him. And if I don't make X amount of money by X amount of time, I may need to go back to town. And that's the reality of it all. Mm-hmm. And I recognize that that's not the same story for everyone. And so I just want to reiterate the importance of it. Not everyone has to be an entrepreneur. And even though on almost every episode that we've had on the AgriMinds podcast has been an entrepreneur, there is so much need for employees, really good ones too. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at any place, anywhere, they're hiring. They're like, as long as you just show up, we'll hire you. And even then we'll still give you the benefit of the doubt. Like, we just need a name to put on the piece of paper at this point, because they just couldn't find good employees. So there is something to be said about really hardworking, dedicated, loyal, and knowledgeable people within the agriculture industry. And so for any company listening, I mean, if you've got them, like, take care of those employees. Exactly. There is a huge need for that. And so I just want to, first of all, commend you and applaud you for like raising your hand and saying, hey, like, my story looks different. I tried this route and I realized that's not what works for me and my family and our farm. And this is not necessarily a sacrifice, but almost a sacrifice of my time and my energy, because I want to see the longevity, the long term of our farm. And this is what I'm willing to do in the interim to make sure that that legacy lives on.
Yes. Oh, exactly. And I think too, there's so many misconceptions about having a job. And I think that has almost clouded this, like, you can only take ownership if you're an entrepreneur, has really clouded the actual work life of people in a corporate position or in a job. Like, I've realized, even being in the position that I am, I'm not in leadership in the company that I work for, but yet I can still take ownership of certain tasks. I can still take ownership of projects, and I can still take pride in that what I'm doing is making a difference. And I think that people cloud themselves by thinking, oh, it's just a desk job. I just do this from day to day. I just do that. And really, you need to take pride in what you do, no matter what that is. And, if it's one little win a week that you helped a customer figure out how to log back into their account, you made the difference in their day because they needed to get into their account, so you have to take pride and just take on those little victories and those little wins and really enjoy them. Like you were saying, you went into a corporate position, you've realized you've got this entrepreneurship bug, but you might have to go back to work. And I think that's the beauty of life, is that there's always opportunity. Like, take advantage of every opportunity that you have. Nothing drives me crazier than when someone says, well, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? I have not a clue where I see myself 5 years from now. And I get that question. And sure, I have plans on where I want to be 5 years from now, what I want to be doing 5 years from now. But the reality of it is, I don't know what opportunities are going to be here between now and 5 years from now. I could get a great opportunity for a different job tomorrow. We could have something happen on our farm where, we decide that we need me back full time and I'm back there tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen day to day. And I think that's something that entrepreneurship, and especially farming, has taught me, is just to roll with the punches. You figure out everything that it takes, but don't be surprised by something pulling you off course, because that's another opportunity that's presenting itself to you.
Yeah. And I think the same can be said, like when we were talking about New Year's resolutions back in January, right? Like, I love goals. I love to set them. I don't necessarily achieve them, but that's because I'm a planner. That's my personality type. I love to daydream. I love to think about questions. I love to cultivate a situation or an environment for things to flourish. But that doesn't mean I'm interested in the actual flourishing. But I know, because that's my working genius, is the genius of wonder. But, like I'll talk to my husband about it. He goes, I'm just not a goal type of person. And that's totally fine. He's said that so many times. He's like, that's just your thing, Kacee. Like, I'm just here and now, and I'm doing what I need to be doing when I need to be doing it. And I'm flexible and I'm adaptable, but that doesn't mean I need to have this big 10-year plan. But I challenge him on that sometimes, because wouldn't it be nice if you at least knew what you were working towards? Like if you didn't have something to set your sights on, you could be, working a heck of a lot harder than smarter. And I challenge the thinking of, not necessarily is it important to go and set goals all the time for every little thing, or is it okay to just wing everything? But I think there's a healthy balance for you as an individual to find out what's the right thing for you, that's not overwhelming, that keeps you just enough motivated, but being intentional with it all. And I mean, that's what God tells us to do, right? He's just not like, here, have whatever you want, whenever you want, but like, take what I'm giving you and use it for good, and use it to produce more of, and use it for, like productivity, like do it with intention.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm getting on a soapbox.
I love it. No, that's so great. And it's so true. I'm the same way. I'm like goals upon goals. Like I have, okay, this is my list of things that I want to get done. My goals that I want to finish by the end of this week, by the end of this month, by the end of this year, like that's how I think. And I try to, like, I minimize it down to, okay, what do I need to get done today? That's how I am more productive. Whereas my husband, he's like the dreamer. He's like thinking 10 years down the road, and he's like telling me all these plans. I'm like, no, I am just thinking about making the credit card payment today. And that's it. So don't tell me all your dreaming big plans, because I don't want to hear it. So we have to kind of balance each other out like that too. So I get what you're saying there with your husband.
But there's no right or wrong way though. And that's the point, don't feel pressured to be someone that you're not, or to do the things in a way that doesn't make sense for you. And that's why I always reiterate on every single episode of the AgriMinds podcast is there is a sweet spot. There is an intersection of personal and professional development that is ideal for you, which is the right amount of each. And that's my push, is to encourage you to find what works for you. And so we continue to share resources and motivation, so that way you can find the thing that works for you. We'll give ideas, we'll give different stories and words of wisdom of what we've experienced. And my encouragement is to take bits and pieces of all of our stories and say, yes, that's the piece of inspiration. That's the thing I'm going to learn their lesson from and not do the same thing. Take those bits and pieces and make the right mesh for you, because we're all coming at this from a different experience level, different background, different perspective, different feeling towards things. And so, that's again, I don't know why I'm on such a soapbox today.
I think it's great. And, it sucks, because one of the hardest parts about social media is that I feel like it starts bringing you into that pressure. I mean, like, I bought a sourdough starter. I hate cooking. Why am I going to make sourdough bread? Like, that is not realistic at all. But I saw all these girls on social media with their sourdough starters, and it looked so fun and so cool. And I was like, I think I'm going to join that trend. No, it's still in the package. I never even attempted it because it sounded overwhelming once I got it in. So, I think for me, I was very active in social media. I am very active on social media, but I was really pushing our farm. I was pushing education on agriculture, different things when I transitioned into this full-time career. And I really struggled mentally, like, I'm doing this, but I see all these other women who are farm wives and who are in the roles that I was in, and they're succeeding. How come I didn't succeed in that? And I think that you just have to really turn your perspective onto yourself, what's good for you and your family, and how you're serving with things, because it puts so much unnecessary pressure on you when you're looking at other people and you're seeing, oh, well, they gave up their job to do this full time. I would love to do that, but I'm happy where I'm at. And I need to recognize that, because you can very, very quickly get sucked into that trend of everyone's doing this, so you need to do that. And it's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out too, because, I don't know if we were recording yet or not, but we talked about like when I was on the farm, I almost felt like a failure because when I left, I was essentially saying I give up, or like I'm not trying anymore. And I didn't want people to think that that meant I didn't care about the farm. And I'm one of 4 daughters, and part of me thinks if I were the son of the family, would I have been able to have made it? Would I have had knowledge? Would I have had a drive? Would I have had the work ethic
Oh, yeah.
that was
guilt.
needed in order to be successful? Like I have a lot of that guilt and shame, and going to town was like me saying I couldn't cut it as the farmer's daughter. And I know so
That's
many
not the case.
people. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that now, but don't get me wrong, it still gives me a little bit of a heartache because I wanted so badly, like if I don't take over the family farm, nobody else is gonna, and it's gonna end with me, and that's heavy. And I have a hard time with that. But at the same time, I see so many of my friends, like my guy friends growing up, who are now running their family farm. And it's like, man, what did they have that I didn't? What did they know that I didn't? What resources did they get that I somehow didn't? And we cannot compare ourselves. We cannot do that. It's going to do nothing but drag us down. And the same thing goes for any of our situations of, this is what our career history has looked like. This is what our resume has looked like. Because even with you and I, like I worked for the same company that you worked for, but I worked for them 6 years ago.
Right.
And at that time, I mean, it was a different role, but at that time, I was learning so much. I had that same experience of, man, I'm learning so many things about agriculture, different types of farming and different crops and different methods and different people. And it was such an amazing experience, but it didn't feel like enough for me. And I moved on. Whereas it's the exact opposite for you. Like, this is the perfect thing for your family right now. And so we can't judge, we can't compare, because we may have the exact same type of environment that we're in, but it's not going to fill our cups up in the way that we need it to, because we want different things. We are having 2 different lives. We're in 2 different environments. We have 2 different backgrounds. We have 2 different versions of what success looks like for us in the future and for us right now.
Exactly. And I think a perfect farming analogy of that is, like you're saying, every field is different. Every person is different. Everyone's situation is different. You look at fields on your farm, on our farm, we have a lot of smaller blocks. So they're smaller acreage. And so we have a lot of different vegetables, different crops planted on a single farm, and we look at a field on one end of the farm can get better weather, better soil conditions than a field on the other end of the farm. And they look totally different. They yield totally different. And then the next year it could be flip-flopped because that was their season. That was their time. So I think, like you're saying, it's just, you can't judge it based off of the person down the road and their situation and what they're going through, because you don't know. We really don't know the reality of it. It may look great. It may look picture perfect, but is the reality of it picture perfect? We have no idea. And maybe it is, and that's okay. Great for them. But what you have to do is serve your own family, your own yourself, and what's best for your situation at the time. I mean, I did feel a lot of guilt, and that guilt can eat away at you really quickly. You can let your mind go really fast into that feeling of constantly guilty. And for me, I married into it, and I want to see the farm succeed, and I want to see the legacy being carried. And we want nothing more than to make my father-in-law proud, and for him to see the farm grow the way he wants to see it grow. And so, of course, leaving the farm, initial thoughts were, I'm giving up on it. And that was a really hard thing to swallow. And there were times where I would feel really down on myself, and I started feeling really upset. Like I don't want to have anything to do with the farm. I've fallen out of love with the farm in a way, because there had been so much hurt and so much struggle that we had gone through with the farm. But after leaving, once I turned this mindset away from, I am doing it because I'm going away from the farm, to I am doing it for the farm, because I know that this is the situation that is going to help in making our farm better, in making our farm stronger financially. We no longer have to, sustain 2 households, because I can supplement our income by having another job. And guess what? I found a career also where I can use what I'm doing today to help our farm. So I've been able to use our own software to help in things for our food safety audits, to help with our budgeting. So it all comes back around, and it really, you just have to, it's even like the mindset of being a farm wife, your first time that you're married and you're realizing that your husband is going to miss all these different occasions. And, you're like, okay, this farm is his his mistress there off to the side. But you have to shift that mindset to, he wants to be here for dinner. He wants to be here for all these family functions and occasions. And there's times where he can't be because the farm is in high demand, but he's not doing it because he's choosing the farm over you. He's doing it because he's doing it for your family and for you. And so I had to have that same type of mindset shift on myself. And he totally backs me and supports me 100%. And he agrees, you're doing this for the farm. You're not doing this because you're giving up on the farm.
That's powerful too. I want to hear more about the mindset shift. Were there tools or resources that helped you or kind of supported that shift? Or was that something that you just kind of had to learn as you go?
I think it's a little bit of both. I have a group of farm wife friends that we actually all connected and met on social media, and then have this group text going, and where we kind of constantly talk back and forth. And having that support from them really did help me. I did have to get off of social media for a little while, just because it was too much. I kept seeing all these success stories and all these women out on their farms, and it gave me FOMO. I wanted to be doing that still. And it took away from my happiness and pride in what I was doing for a little bit there. So I think just being very aware of how you're feeling and what's affecting those feelings and those thoughts, that really took me to pulling myself into that mindset shift that I needed. And I'm constantly doing it every day. Even now, there still is times where I'm like, oh, maybe I should switch careers. Maybe this job isn't for me. Maybe now I want to stay home with my kids because they're home for summer and I'm not getting to see them as much as I would want to. But then I have to shift back to the good. You got to see the positive in everything that you're doing from day to day.
Yeah, that's hard to do for me. I get caught up in that every day too. And I can't tell you how many times I've done a social media fast. A friend of mine gave me a book called The 40-Day Social Media Fast. And it was how to take your mind and your attention and your dependency and your knowledge all away from everybody else on social media and put it towards your relationship with God. And that was the hardest thing I ever did. And I've tried to do that fast several times, and I make it to like hour 3 or
we're so addicted, aren't we? It's crazy.
It's
that addiction is real.
Yeah. I mean, I think I made it to a couple of weeks one day or one time, and it changed my mind. And I was like, man, I didn't miss anything out on social media. Like I was trying to scroll back and like see if I missed anything, which is like impossible to do. But I really didn't. What I missed though was the encouragement. Like I follow a ton of accounts that are inspiring and motivational and resourceful, like the Ag Facts or hey, you're an entrepreneur. Here's 5 marketing tips of things that are trending. And so, as I'm trying to build my business, I absolutely will admit, like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing sometimes. Like, clearly, if you've made it this many episodes in the AgriMinds podcast, like my microphone sound has changed. The length of the episodes have been changed because I'm learning as I go. And I think it's important to call that out. And so I'm always open to staying relevant on what are the new best tips and tricks. But you have to make sure that you filter that out of like, am I going to be getting educated to help improve myself or my business or my operation or my family dynamics, whatever it is, or am I going to compare?
Exactly. And so I think social media, it can be such a great tool. Like here I have been saying, oh, well, I just was comparing myself to all these people. But I think if you go into social media being a tool to encourage yourself to learn new things, then I think it's really good. You just have to make sure that you're not over consuming yourself into, other people's lives and what you want out of other people's lives and getting that mindset out of it. Because really social media, like you're saying, it can be so encouraging. It can really show you some new tactics. It can be a very effective tool for marketing and advertising now, especially when you're running a business and you're in a rural area where it might be harder to access marketing tools. And it can just really be a great way to meet people. I know during the pandemic, I really leaned into social media and I met some amazing friends who I talked to all the time, and we bounced ideas back and forth on how things were going for them, especially in the produce world. It's a very volatile market, and we were all very concerned about what is this going to do for our onion market as we're facing harvest and everything is still shut down. Restaurants across the world are still not open, and restaurants are a key buyer of onions. What is this going to do to the watermelon market a couple months later? And it's just given me, have made so many new friends that really can relate to you as someone being in the ag industry. And I mean, like you and I, we met and you were like, hey, where is it that you work right now? Oh, I used to work for the same company. It's amazing how you can make all these different connections. And I think it's a great tool for advocacy and for educating and teaching. I have so many people who have reached out and been like, I've learned so much about produce farming from you just because you're sharing what your fields look like and what the process looks like. So, yeah, I think social media can be a very, very great tool as long as you are mindful about how you use it.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things that has, I don't know if elevated the agriculture industry has been social media though. I mean, you're right. We're learning so many things, but it's also diversifying the income for a lot of operations as well. And diversification is probably my favorite word these days, because I thought growing up on a corn and soybean farm in the Midwest, that's what every Midwest farm looked like. And like in my mind, I was like, okay, people in the South grow cotton, people in the, Western states grow cactus. Like, I had no idea. Wheat in Kansas, like that's all I knew. And I felt so stupid. But then when I went to college and, became a full-time employee, as I, kind of grew in my career, I learned so many more things about what the actual agriculture industry looked like. And when it was actually at that company that you work for, that is where it became apparent to me that more people are trying new things and it's okay. People are going to question them. They're going to think they're nuts. Like I remember the very first time I went to a very large corn and soybean farm in Kentucky, and they used to also grow tobacco. And they were sharing with me that they switched out majority of their tobacco farms to hemp. And I was like, wait, you grow hemp? Oh my gosh, I don't think I can be associated with you. And like, I, didn't know anything about hemp. in my mind, I'm thinking it's pot, right? Like, I don't know if
Right.
that's what the cool kids call it anymore, but that's what I thought. And then I became educated on what the actual crop does, how it can benefit our industry, you know, both from like the fiber perspective and from the oil side. Like, there's so many things. And I'm like, wow, like their farm is going to stay afloat because they're willing to take a chance on a crop that most people would think they were nuts for, because there isn't really a defined market. They don't really have all the protocols in place for growing this. The machinery isn't quite there. There's no way to track it. There's manual labor versus equipment and like all the things. And to be able to accept that a real old time farmer didn't have the mindset that I thought he was going to have blew me away. And it's like, okay, if this person that I assumed was going to tackle these things this way, or was going to have this certain opinion about things, didn't, and they showed up in a way that completely blew my socks off, maybe I can also admit that I don't have the answer to everything. My way isn't that, or the highway, you know, like there can be a mixture of both, and that we can diversify so many parts of our life, not just our farming operation, but our hobbies and our mindset. And when you go back to thinking about like, oh, it's either the farm or it's corporate America, like it doesn't have to be. You can have a mixture of it all. You can also throw in hobbies that scratch the itch of the things that you need temporarily. Like, for example, say you're a mom for a new, you know, for the first time, and you had to give up XYZ thing because now your time and attention goes towards your kids. That doesn't mean that you don't care about the thing anymore. That doesn't mean that you still don't want to do it. You may not have the amount of time that you used to, but you can still scratch the itch and keep your sanity. But your schedule just looks different now. And so you're diversifying your time in a way that makes sense for you in this season of your life. Same thing with your farming operation. You're diversifying your crop mix to make it make sense for the economy, for the soil type that you have, all the above.
Yes, constantly. Yeah. And so much of farming is taking that chance. You're not going to get anywhere unless you take chances, unless you make changes each season on your operation, then you're just going to be stuck. And it's farmers are really, since I didn't grow up directly on a farm, I didn't realize how big of innovators farmers are. Like, it doesn't matter what generation you are or how old you are, you're constantly learning new concepts. You're constantly doing your own research and development and taking chances, because you don't know what each season holds. And it's really interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point. And like we mentioned just a little bit ago, sometimes I fear that people assume I know what I'm doing when I actually don't. Like, part of me wants to be really real and share with you, hey, I'm personally growing, or right now is my professional development and I'm learning a new skill, or I'm sharpening something, or I'm bringing out an old tool that was shoved way back in the corner of the shed that I haven't used in a while, you know? And so I want to be open and honest and share that. But at the same time, I want to look professional and appear like I do know what I'm doing. And it's trying to find that right mix. And I wish I knew who said it, but there was a quote that said, it is better to seem uninformed than it is to actually be uninformed. And
I like that. I really like
think
that.
about that a lot, because it's like, you know, even though we don't always have it figured out, I would rather be doing the work and figuring it out than people assuming something about me, right? Like, I want them to think I have it figured out. Anyway, all right, I'm going off on a tangent.
My husband always says, I always tell people I'm practicing farming, because that just gives that open innuendo to either I'm really doing great at it or I'm just trying to figure out what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. And, you know, when you think about like any other profession though, like think of like an NBA player, how many free throws have they practiced in their time? Like billions. You get 50 shots sometimes to get farming down. You know what I mean? And I just, to think about our personal and our professional development and our growth, and how we have only so many opportunities to get it right. Like, why not share with people, hey, you know what? My journey has not looked the way that I wanted it to, but this is what I've learned. And so I just want to say thank you for sharing yours, because it's a refreshing story compared to what we typically hear and what we typically see on social media.
Yes, of course. Like I said, I always want to encourage people that, your role matters no matter what that is. And everyone's role looks different. And it's okay to leave one entrepreneur dream to go into a career. And just as long as you take pride in everything that you're doing.
Yeah. Well, you've definitely unintentionally triggered some things in me. Like those are heartfelt things. And I don't think a lot of people talk about it in agriculture. We're afraid to admit this kind of stuff. And so again, I want to say thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable and kind of saying, hey, I'm not like the rest of them, and this is okay. There's no resentment, there's no pride, there's no ego. It's just, it is what it is, and this is okay.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. This was a great conversation today. I've enjoyed it so much.